Gospel Diaries. Listen, we're at it once again. We're still in the beautiful city, and I do mean beautiful. To me, it's beautiful. City of Birmingham, Alabama. Would you take a moment and please subscribe, share this content because it's from my heart to yours. But listen, I got a chance to meet this fine young man uh, initially one of the about what was it about a month ago when I was in Chicago. I was doing some Gospel Diary episodes, and we've just become brothers. And he has an amazing history in gospel music here in Birmingham, and I think that it's remarkable to have an opportunity to delve into his Gospel Diary. I'm talking about none other than Brother Bruce Henderson. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Man, I'm blessed by the best. So excited to be sitting here with you. You are a musician,
Yes.
but learning more about you, I found out that you are also a PK right here in Birmingham, right?
Yes.
So let's talk about your humble beginnings as a PK.
Okay. So my father was pastor, is a pastor. His Bruce Henderson Sr. is who I was named after. When I was born, he was pastoring the Mount Zion Baptist Church of Cordova, Alabama. And so shortly after I turned 10 or 11, he left and went to another church. And now he's at the Friendship Baptist Church in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, which is about an hour away. But father was pastor, mom was the first lady slash church organist. My grandmother was a church organist for the churches she played for. So music ministry has just always been in my life. Mom sings, dad sings.
Really?
So growing up, my father being a PK, he
Mhm.
was always doing revivals and things. And so they didn't really take me on the road like that. So my grandmother, my mom's mom, was kind of like my babysitter and caretaker. And so she recognized the gift early in me.
Mhm.
But again, she was a church musician, so she sang in all of these different groups. So I would be traveling with her, going to all these programs. The group was called the Gospel Train.
Okay, gospel
The
train.
Gospel Train.
Okay,
And
okay.
so there was a local community choir. And so you had people up in their 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. And then you had a little 8-year-old in the choir.
Okay.
Some of the songs that Dwayne was talking about earlier, like your Mahalia Jackson hits, your Didn't It Rain Children, and what's the Come On Children, Let's Sing, and of course the Gospel Train, the theme song with the Gospel Train is
Mhm.
coming round. So I mean, it was all those old God put a rainbow in the sky, all of that type of stuff.
Yeah.
That's what I grew up on.
I
So,
like that. Okay, okay.
um, I heard Jesus be a fence
Uh
all
huh.
around
Uh
me,
huh.
but it was the meditation thing because that was the
Yeah,
version I
yeah.
grew up
Okay,
on.
okay,
So
okay.
that's what the churches sung around me. I
Yeah.
didn't know the more notable,
Mm-hmm.
arrangements of things. My church choir, of course, was a little country church. So while we sung Jesus Can Work It Out, it was not the Cosmopolitan version.
Okay.
It was the Maceo Woods. My cousin, she joined a group called E. Tony Gaines and Victory. And it was their 15th anniversary concert at Fresh Fire Assembly Worship in Hueytown, Alabama. I'll never forget this night. So I'm sitting out there, young, just eager, excited for the music that I'm going to hear because I heard them at other programs,
Yeah.
but they had all of the gospel local greats. And Dr. Prince Yelder and the Disciples for Christ were on that night. And that blew my mind. And gospel music for me was never the same after that. Age of 10, so let me backtrack.
Uh-huh.
Playing for churches at the age of 10, making $5 a Sunday.
$5.
Humble beginners, right? $5 a Sunday and a bag of candy.
Uh-huh.
So high school, I become a minister of music of the home church where my dad and his siblings grew up.
Mm-hmm.
And you couldn't tell me nothing. I thought I had arrived. I was a minister of music. We had like 4 choirs at the church. The mass choir bought a new robe up under me. So I was just, progressive going. So I moved off to college and I start hearing about the Birmingham Community Mass Choir. Didn't know much about them, which was a chapter choir from GMWA.
Right.
So I heard about GMWA, but again, me not being a gospel kid, just a church kid, I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. So Dr. Crystal Whitfield, who was one of the assistant chapter reps, She works in the funeral home industry, musician, worked with my dad. So I saw her a lot at different programs. And she kept saying, I want you to come join the chapter. And so they had a Christmas program one time, and you had to get a ticket for it. And she was like, I want you to come. So she bought my ticket.
Mm-hmm.
She bought my ticket. And Crystal, if you watch this, I'm so sorry. So that particular Sunday, I really was not up for it. It was something that I really did not want to go. And so, you know how you just make yourself sick?
Yes.
I had made myself sick, and I called. I was like, Crystal, I don't feel well. I'm not going to be able to go. So I didn't go. So the church that my dad was pastoring was in Brighton, not far from Bessemer.
Okay.
And so our musician at the time, Jerry Davis, he would have his annual appreciation, and Cleo Kennedy was one of the ones who would come and sing for him every year. And so that's how I met Cleo.
Wow.
It was before I joined the chapter. She would come to the church every year, and he would make me play for her. And I was like a scared musician back then.
Mm-hmm.
You want me to play for Cleo Kennedy? But every year I would accept the test because she was going to sing Great Is Thy Faithfulness. So I knew that I could flow with her. I was good. The Cleo Kennedy's Love Day, not without Jerry. And so the church had given me the check to still go and represent. You know, churches used to write the checks back then for you to go represent choir days, annual days.
Right.
But I had to go to another service before Cleo's service, and that service, Lord, the Spirit was high that I had sweated out my suit. So I said, well, let me go home, take a shower, put on a fresh suit before I go to Cleo's program. Went home, took that shower, put on that fresh suit, and woke up Monday morning in that suit. Because I was tired, but I still had her check. So I called her that next morning. I said, Miss Kennedy, I'm so sorry. I explained to her what happened with the church choir. And I said, but I got a check for you. And I'm a man of my word. I'm going to get this check to you. So she said, well, okay, I got a rehearsal. This is for the Monday. She said, I got this rehearsal tonight at Lily Grove Baptist Church. She gave me the address. So I said, okay, what time is rehearsal? She said, well, my first rehearsal is at 6:30. I said, well, okay, I'll meet you there. Got off work. Went straight to Lily Grove. Still not knowing what type of rehearsal this was. I'm thinking this is just her church choir. So I walk in and I'm like, oh, this is. So I recognized some of Birmingham Mass. Oh, this is Birmingham Mass. Okay, cool. So she was sitting on the end seat in the center aisle. So they were singing. So I just politely walked down the center aisle, knelt down where she was. Hey, Miss Kennedy, here goes the check. Walking out of the door. As I'm getting ready to walk out the door, Dr. Whitfield is coming through the front door.
Thomas Wilson?
No, Crystal Whitfield. That's a part of Birmingham Mass.
Okay.
So you have to know that she parks in the back and comes through the side door.
Okay.
So this was nothing but divine intervention that she came through the front door this particular Monday night.
Right.
I'm walking out, she's walking in. My car was still running because, again, I was just going to drop off this check and go. So she was like, where you rushing off to? And I'm trying to think of a lie. I'm trying to come up with a lie. She's like, you ain't going nowhere. Cut your cough and come on inside.
Interesting.
So I was obedient because I was always taught whatever adults tell you to do. I was 22 at the time. Whatever adults tell you to do, that's what you do. So I cut off the car, went back inside. So the women were rehearsing. They were getting ready for a program with the women. So after that, the men started showing up. So I'm sitting at the back of the church because I'm just going to observe. So Dr. Eloise Ford Gaffney, who is our chapter representative, she's also a national board member for GMWA, and she's over the women's division nationally. So the choir did Order My Steps, and I Got My Joy Back, all of that. She's over them. So she stood up as she does in every rehearsal, and if she sees a visitor, we have a visitor. Young man, stand up and introduce yourself. So that's what I did. I introduced myself. She said, you coming to join us? I said, I'm praying about it. Dr. Gaffney said, well, while you're praying, the tenor section is up here. And I have been there for the last 10 years of my life.
Uh-huh. All right, so we must spend some time with Prince Yildiz. That man and the disciples
For Christ.
for Christ, their sound is very unique. Like
Yeah.
I spent some time just going through their repertoire, and I was totally amazed. Like they did work with Angela Stibbe, they
Mm-hmm.
did work with Dorothy Norwood, so
Mm-hmm.
many others. But one thing that really caught me, recorded "God Reversed the Curse," and that song was written by someone very dear to me, Reverend John F. Morris. He recorded it for his album, but Dorothy and Prince actually
Mm-hmm.
did it. So just wanted to put that out there. So if y'all get a chance, check out God Reversed the Curse. That's a very, very, very good song.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
In GMWA, he is known as the king of the medley.
Mm-hmm.
No one can put a medley together of songs like Dr. Yilder. Um, for as long as I can remember, his command of a choir, he demands excellence.
Mm-hmm.
Um, even if you don't think you can, he's going to get it out of you over because
Mm-hmm.
he's the minister of music of our chapter. Of course, he's the founder and minister of music of the Disciples for Christ. He is the state minister of music for all of the Alabama chapters when we combined for GMWA. So I've had 10 years to really sit up under him and glean. And again, he opens the door. He's kind of like your Albertina Walker. Um, Sunday at Cleo's Love Day. Now we're in a church full of musicians, people who've been playing longer than I've been alive. And he calls up this group that has singers from across the state, and people from Japan were in this choir. And so, of course, there's no musician there. And he calls me out of the audience to come to the organ to play.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not one who's just going to voluntarily go up to an organ to play, especially not in a room full of
Okay.
musicians. Um, but even when we were at GMWA one year and the women of worship had to sing, which he's over the music for the women of worship. And you got your David Blakeys and your Tim Postons and your Stephen Roberts, all of these famed organists and keyboardists sitting right here. And Prince sends me a text when the women of worship hit the stage. I need you to go to the organ. And I'm looking at my phone like, are you serious right now?
Mm-hmm.
Just delving back into my GMWA history
Mm-hmm.
because I cannot leave
Mm-hmm.
them out. If it wasn't for GMWA, I really would not have the things that I have in
Oh
gospel
yeah,
music.
yeah,
So I've been a songwriter since my college days. I actually wrote my first song called Wait on the Lord at the request of Bobby Jones. Bobby Jones was good friends with the guy who was over our jazz band at Stillman College at the time, Dr. McPherson. And he wanted to sponsor. I was over the gospel choir, student conductor,
Mm-hmm.
and he wanted us to do a recording. And this guy tells Dr. Bobby Jones on the phone, yeah, and the gospel choir director, his name is Bruce Henderson, he's gonna write a couple of songs for the CD. And I had never written a song in my life.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And I'm looking at this man like, are you crazy? And Dr. Maddie Moss Clark, of course, she was deceased at the time, but I watched a lot of her stuff and gleaned a lot of information from her. And I always remember she used to say, your song should come from the Word of God. If your song ain't about the Word of God, like Cleo said, the song's got to make sense. You got to have some substance to it.
Mm-hmm.
So I woke up the next morning praying,
Mm-hmm.
Lord, give me a song that's got substance to it. Give me a song that's going to make a difference. And it's like what the Spirit said, open your Bible.
Mm-hmm.
Read the word, and I turned straight to Isaiah. They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength.
Mm-hmm.
Shall mount up on wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary, walk and not faint. Wait, I say, on the Lord. And that's how my whole first song came to fruition. So the name of my choir is the Warriors of Worship.
Warriors for Worship. My God.
Yeah.
What inspired the name?
So again, I was a huge Cosmo fan. And so at the
Really?
time,
Okay.
I was trying to come up with a name of a choir, but I wanted the initials to be a word or to stand for something. So our initials are WOW, wow. And I always said when I want the people to hear us, I want them to say, wow, in honor of the Cosmopolitan Warriors. And so I called Reverend Darrell Smith and I called Elder Charles Hayes and asked them for permission because I did not want to be a copycat, but I wanted their blessing as well. And so I got their blessing to name the choir the Warriors of Worship. So that would distinguish between the two groups. Of course, we could never compare to the Warriors. But that was the name of the ministry that God gave to me. I had the initial meeting August 6, 2016. When I got to church, I didn't go to the restroom thinking that was the sanctuary. The old people said he touched me with the finger of love. He gave me the activity of my limbs. So just look to your neighbor real quick and say, neighbor, I know the Lord laid his hands on me. Now we have a special treat. This song was recorded by the Cosmopolitan Church of Prayer Choir by the late Dr. Charles G. Hayes Sr. And we have his grandson here with us, Elder Charles G. Hayes III, that's going to lead it for us today. Can we say amen to him? So the invitation came because, of course, I had already started connecting with them back in 2016.
Okay.
And so that's when I first met Pastor Darrell, Elder Charles, and so many of them. And so there was that love. I had fell in love with Chicago, wanted to move there. I knew that's where I was going to spend the rest of my life. And so next thing I know, Sharice Wilson, who she lives in the South now, but she was one of the church administrators. I'm sitting on the organ at church, and Sharice texts me and goes, how would you feel about your choir being a special guest for Gospel Feast? So this is during the offering period. So, musicians playing during the offering. I almost fell off the organ because I'm like, am I dreaming? Did we really just get an invitation to come to sing at the Cosmopolitan Church of Prayer? And so I was on cloud 1,000. We got to back up Grammy award-winning Loud Love It
Really?
at the historic Lyric Theater. That was one of the first concerts they did when they reopened the Lyric.
Mm-hmm.
And we got to sing background for them. And that was one of our biggest paid engagements as a ministry.
Yeah.
When they opened the doors of the church, don't you go up there and join them folks' church.
Right.
So that service, and it's on YouTube. Clips from that service is on YouTube. So you'll see my very first service at Cosmo.
What year was that? What was the date?
That was the first Sunday in March 2016.
Mm-hmm.
The choir sung, and this is how you're gonna find it. Of course, I got there. The choir was marching in, so of course, Cosmo, when they're marching in, the ushers at the doors. You're not walking in. You have to wait until they open the doors. So by the time they opened the doors, I found my seat in the back. Because again, I'm shy. I don't want to be seen, And the choir opened up with Yolanda Johnson.
Yes.
Singing, "If the Lord never does anything else for me, He's done enough."
Yes.
And she wiped us out. That was just the very beginning of service. And I remember she walked around. This was at 842. And those were some long aisles. Yolanda had on that white robe and walked us out. And Dontre Hobbs was there. And he kind of walked with her, to make sure she was okay. After that, Glenn Ford came down and led Keep Me. Keep me from all
Glenn
harm
Ford,
and danger.
my God.
Keep me. So you'll see me on the video in the audience just clapping because I was like, yes, this is it.
Mm-hmm.
And so when Pastor Darrell opened the doors of the church, I texted Dante. I said, they just opened the doors of the church. Should I go down? Should I go down? And she was like, don't you dare walk down that aisle. Of course, 2017, I started my choir.
Mm-hmm.
2018, we celebrated our 1-year anniversary, but the enemy crept in and I ended up taking a sabbatical from my group. The group split. And so at that time, I was in a dark place, but no one knew that the group split. It was just people would call, "Hey, can we get your group?" And I was like, "Oh, no, we're not available at this time." Like, I never uttered out of my mouth, "I no longer have my choir." Right. I never said it. And so one night, sitting up in the bed, this was March 2018, Pastor Darrell reached out to me and asked me to consider being a webcast member, not knowing that I no longer had my choir. Mm-hmm. So God just laid it upon his heart to bring me in during a time of my life where I felt rejected and I felt like gospel music was over for me. Mm-hmm. And so I was so excited. Eric, I drove from Birmingham to Chicago every other Thursday for choir rehearsal.
Yes. Okay.
And Shelby Wills, who was the minister of music at the time, Shelby was so embarrassing. Shelby got up in choir rehearsal one night. He said, "This young man drives 700 miles one way, and some of y'all won't come to rehearsal from across the street." So now I'm sitting there like, "Oh, these people gonna hate me." But I was so excited to be a part of the choir. So I would take off every other Thursday and Friday and drive from Birmingham to Chicago. 9 hours now. Drive up there, go to rehearsal, get some sleep, drive back to Alabama that next Friday, Chicago. And I became the organist for the Cosmopolitan Church Prayer Plan for the Warriors. And November, December, Pastor Darrell entrusted me with the Bible classes. So I had shifted the Bible class from just being a Bible study type class to where we was doing book studies that were biblically and Christian based, but not an actual Bible study.
Yes.
And so they're still doing them today. Andre Cunningham is doing a great job of keeping that going. He's introduced a new book to the church because they did 2 books under me. And so I'm just excited for the future of my church.
What was the books, titles of the books that you introduced?
So the first book I introduced was entitled I Am a Church Member, which a lot of churches have used that. But the second book was a brand new book, like literally the day I told Pastor about it was the day it came out. So it was fresh off the press. Okay. It was called Confessions of a Crappy Christian.
Wow.
And it dealt with real life topics that many churches don't talk about. Okay. But people are hurting.
Yeah.
Souls need to be saved. And that's where I am in ministry today. Yeah. So we had a busy schedule for the 6 months that I was in Chicago. Okay. By the time I got to Chicago, we started working on Gospel Feast. Okay. So Gospel Feast was my first event out the gate in October. Okay. Right after Gospel Feast, we went straight into Father Hayes Day. So we had to work on Father Hayes Day. And then after that, We did a Christmas musical this year because Christmas was on a Sunday. So that was 3 major events that we did back to back to back to back. So right after the Christmas season, we started working on the recording.
Wow.
So December, January, February, and then the recording was March the 11th, because March 12th is the day I moved back to Alabama.
That's going to be an incredible musical project.
Yes.
Once it's released, because I was there, I was so excited to be there. One of my favorite songs was the first song, the opening song with Leroy Patton. That man, and then I thoroughly enjoy Lane Turner.
Oh yeah,
that man.
So that song was written by Terry Moore, who's one of the producers of that album. I had a remix that made it onto the album. I remade "Weeping May Endure for a Night," which of course Michelle Brown made that song popular with the choir. And then of course Jessica Head sang it.
So give me the first.
Weeping May endure for a night, but joy. Yeah, that's the one.
I was like, Jessica, go sit down.
So I remixed that song and made it a little bit more modern. Yeah. So Jessica Head and Andre Cunningham both lead that song on the CD.
I like that. That's gonna be a
so that's my little contribution to the CD, to the musical era for Cosmo.
I like that, man. Listen, thank you so much for allowing me to take this time to delve into your gospel diary.
Thank you.
And I'm so excited for the Gospel Diary family to embrace your contributions. And on that note, as I say always, love on someone and you will change your life.
Thank you for coming back.
Yes, ma'am.